Welcome, everybody. It's Stephanie Brown here with another episode, or whatever you want to call it, of Intelligent Construction Opportunities. Today, our guests are the ControlQore team, as you can see. We've got JD Whitaker, who's head of product. We've got Caleb, who's a co-founder, along with Bryant Solomon, who is CEO and co-founder. I believe, Caleb, you are working on the financial side of the fence. Is that correct as far as the company is concerned?
Yeah, I oversee all of the revenue and go-to-market with our customers.
Very good. Very good. Well, we want to put a really nice emphasis on today's live stream because we've got a really tight team here, and they tell a really good story of why they decided to go ahead and make ControlQore for the financial management side of construction contractors, and how from end to end it helps the site to actually control the monies and the back office to understand what they're doing with what their spends are. So I want to kind of turn this, and we'll kind of go around. We'll start with JD, and I just want everybody to sort of get your background, and then we'll end up back at JD, and we can contextualize our story a little bit. Does that sound good?
That's great.
All right, go for it, JD.
Okay, so let's just look at my background then, huh? So,
sure,
well, yes. I grew up picking up garbage on the job site, and promised to myself I would never work in construction. And so I went and got a degree in finance, and actually started doing a little bit of a day trading. And I needed a place to park all of my monitors, and just so happened that the family office was the best place with internet connection.
Wow.
And the first office, I guess like the right wall was actually a garage door. And so when it would rain, like I had water coming in my feet, and it was it was exciting. But the real point of even sharing that was that it gave me an opportunity to just listen in on the conversations that were being had. We were a small office at the time, maybe averaging. This was probably 10 years ago, but 4 to 7 million annual revenues, maybe up to 10 or at that time. But just it was fascinating to listen in on the problems and just the issues that I could kind of overhear on phone calls and different meetings and whatnot. And it intrigued me so much so that I approached my dad so my dad was the general contractor, and I approached him about working for the family business. And he looked at me and he's just like, "What are you going to do?" And he'd seen me work with power tools and other stuff, and he, just needless to say, didn't have a high degree of confidence in that. But we joke around about that because we have a good relationship. But it gave me an opportunity to jump in on the finance side, as well as like actually really broad, just kind of exposure from HR admin, finance, billing, operations, and all the issues that you get to confront in a small kind of growing family business. And just been able to take it for a ride for the last 10 years and see some pretty tremendous growth, and to learn a lot. It's been kind of a pressure cooker of stress. But that's kind of where most of our ideas have come from, and the opportunities that we call them opportunities. Some people might call them really big problems, but either way, that's our game. That's our passion.
But that's great, because that's why have a platform if it's not solving problems?
Yeah, and that's what's most exciting. That's honestly what keeps us going, at least on the product side. It's exciting to address these issues and to try to make just to get the solution out of the way, and get the software out of the way, and let us just keep building and focus on why we got involved with the industry in the first place. So
Exactly.
That's a little bit my background.
That's good. That's good, JD. We'll return to some of these ideas that you've sort of spun up a little bit here. And Caleb, can you share with the people what you're all about and what brings you to ControlQore?
You bet. Yeah, I've known Bryant. We've been best friends since childhood, and we kind of had, adjacent careers growing up. Went to school and got into the corporate world and kind of stayed close, of course, as friends. But I know Bryant will share more about kind of where things got started with JD. And as they were discussing the key pain points and the problems of the construction industry from a financial control level, we started talking, and on a seat of a frozen chairlift at a ski resort, we're like, dude, we got to do this, guys. So my background is in business growth and development and the go-to-market and revenue side. And so I knew that that's really where I could help bring this team forward. And so that's the part that I brought to the table. And then we have several other partners that bring a lot of relevant industry skills. And so we built a unique team that has software development experience, general contracting experience, and understanding of that construction ecosystem at a tactical and strategic level, and then business and growth experience there. And so it's not something that you get that combination very often with those kind of professionals all in the same room. And so that's really why we feel like we have a unique structure here.
And I think you're a very tight team. I mean, for as short a time as I've been working with the three of you, I really commend your ethics, and you can see how even when you respond to, a work-a-day email, how cohesive you are in your communications, and how you deal with your external communications. And so I think it's good a time as any to call that out, because that is not always the case.
Mostly, we're just afraid that JD's going to come beat us up.
Well, I admire his big stick. So okay. And Bryant, what about you?
So I'm Bryant. I'm the CEO of the company, more so just by assignment than by volunteering. My background is in accounting and finance. Spent time in corporate America at large investment banking firms and electric vehicle companies. You can take your guesses there. And then spent time as a CFO for a small software company in Salt Lake City. And as my career was growing and as I was experiencing the ups and downs of accounting and finance, JD was relaying to me all of his growing pains that he was experiencing in the construction space. And
can I just call out for a second? You are related by marriage?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So JD and I are brother-in-laws. So we have to see each other and we have to get along for the most part. So JD's talking to me about all of the problems and issues that he's seeing. And I just tell him that he's bad at his job. And
I was asking, I'm like, is it just me? Am I bad at my job? Like, really? Am I crazy?
And so finally, after that seat on the chairlift, that conversation on the chairlift, JD and I had a long discussion and decided that it would be best that if we are going to figure out a solution, if I came and worked for the family business. So I left my job in Salt Lake City and came up to Layton to work for the family business as the executive in finance, so I could get my feet wet and experience what it is to manage the construction finance. And it was great. I enjoyed every second of it, but I did come to realize that JD was not just bad at his job. There were other factors as well. So, it became a really great, stepping off moment for us to get experience. JD have his set of experience, allow me to bring my accounting and financial knowledge of the rest of the world, and then start putting ControlQore together. So my job now is just to make sure that our message and our platform gets as far reaching as possible, so people really understand that we are hell bent on solving the financial issues that contractors face day in and day out. Whether you're a small, less, sub $1 million mom and pop shop, all the way up to the $100 million shops that are still running and still needing a level of control that they're looking for out in the world.
So that's great. That's a great segue into, I'm going to say, we're going to try and dig into 5 core areas about why you even exist, right? And so, we want to understand, for example, what is the relationship and interaction between the accounts receivable department of a subcontractor material supplier and the accounts payable of the GC? Like, this is really the apex of why ControlQore exists. So who wants to take that one on?
Well, if you guys let me, I'll share my thoughts on it. So I think you can't always paint it with a broad brush, but I think that in different times in my career, I would probably describe it as 2 enemies going to battle: accounts payable, accounts receivable. You could also describe it as 2 innocent victims that have just been fed misinformation by their teammates. And, but I think more often than not, after you sometimes set aside the emotion and frustration of feeling like, hey, someone's not paying me, or hey, these guys are just like calling me and bothering me to get paid. I think it's really just, for the most part, it's just 2 pretty decent folks that are just trying to do a good job. And oftentimes it's just hard because we're not operating on the same page. It's really not really that complicated. So I think that's really kind of the start of where our ideas come from. It's just, how do you get 2 different companies on the same page when it comes to the payment ecosystem? And there's a lot that impacts that ecosystem. So
I think JD, even, I'm sorry to interrupt you here.
Good.
It's not just getting the 2 different companies. Like you even have to start before that. You have to get your company on the same page when it comes to payment terms, whether it's accounts payable or accounts receivable. Just getting your company on the same page is a task in and of itself, to create that level of consistency.
Well,
I look at it.
Yeah, I brought up your problem, your problem statement. So can we kind of dig into details? Like, give us a scenario that you've actually fought through with your own company that, gives our audience context of, what the heck?
Yeah, I think there's a couple that come to my mind, and we'll probably end up hitting on these, but let's just go with within the company itself. There's the stereotypical scenario where change order management, change order situation comes up, and field staff make a decision. A client makes a request, and we don't really have time to stop and make everything perfect and beautiful and convey the information all the way through to the payable department. There's a lot of great resources that are working on that specific problem, but you get basically an invoice, and it's not in line with maybe the contract amount, and so it could look like an overpayment. There's another scenario where, even more simple, so I'm a superintendent, and I'm kind of walking on to the job, and the buyout hasn't been completely done. So I go try to do my best to round up the last couple different trades. Maybe it's just the final cleaning services. Maybe it's a dumpster service. Maybe it's whatever it is. It's a new vendor to the company.
They're good examples, though, JD. So don't be afraid to call out the realities.
I mean, the simple fact, in that vendor's mind, that superintendent is everything. They're the accounts payable. They're the project manager. They're the boots on the ground. And so for some reason, the vendor doesn't even actually find out where to submit the invoices in the first place. And so 90, 120 days go by. And then finally someone figures out I should have called the main office, or, hey, this general contractor has a very generic accounting at generalcontractor.com email address to submit invoices. And then you're just walking into a scenario where like it was an unnecessary gap in the first place in communication, but it just happens a lot, just like really simple, basic coordination issues. But I don't know, those are some of the examples that come to my mind off the top of my head.
And is it because they're dealing with a lot of paper, or just literally, some guy goes and buys something that needs to happen on the site, and the receipt, he doesn't even remember the receipt, let alone
all of the above.
Yeah.
Yep, all of it. Because if you think about, like, we've got a lot of different ways to spend money in this industry. And we spend a lot of money in this industry, whether it's just running out and just snagging materials, like, maybe there's a little bit of scope gap, and fasteners were excluded in a framing contract or something, and someone's scrambling, or maybe, I don't know, embeds in a concrete contractor's contract or something like that, and we're scrambling last minute to fill that scope gap. And whether it's a credit card transaction or it's a new vendor, just stuff kind of just stumbles in. And yeah, like you take the example of lots of paper. Our particular model, we don't self-perform a lot as a general contractor, so we are professional paper pushers. And yeah. And
Can
so
you explain a little bit the difference between self-performing and subcontractors and the scenarios around money and receipts for our audience that may not be clear on self-performing?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a general contractor, you get to make the decision, hey, like what parts of the scope am I actually going to perform within my company? I am not going to subcontract out that trade or activity. So you'll see maybe self-performing from just setting door frames, hanging doors, simple hardware, to full on. Some general contractors might have an entire concrete division, and some might have their own internal excavation division. But either way, it just means we're going to do the work. Whereas I'll just call it like a sub everything out kind of paper pusher model would be, we will shop everything. We will send out a request for bids on every line item. And our intent is to be really good at managing and communicating across all of the trades. And so, our main personnel will probably be, depending on the size of the company, a large number of superintendents, slightly smaller number of project managers, and then kind of trickle on upward, or however you wanted to call it, to other managerial and support staff. But I think from a field operations perspective, you're not going to see a lot of, for a non-self-performing contractor, you're not going to see a lot of laborers within that organization, mostly superintendents and some assistant superintendents, a few support staff for those odds and ends that always come up. But
somebody's got to pick up garbage.
So, right. So, and so that would be my description or my explanation of kind of the two differences within the.
So we would say that ControlQore is best working with trade partners and subcontractors. Is that fair?
I mean, really, I think it's actually, I would say that the product is, it's really well built for general contractors. Maybe that's just because that's our bias, but I think the philosophy of how we've built this product comes from the reality that it's really hard to enforce adoption. And so if we really want to create a true ecosystem, then we need to make it easier for all of our trade partners to communicate, to invoice, to get paid, to find out payment status, to help us with lien waivers, like all of the above. You can't create a true solution without considering and understanding both parties and their needs.
Well, that's a good segue to the next question. So, how often do field staff make financial decisions that don't reach the financial department? And what does that look like? Can you walk us through, it's a
Sure.
little bit of what you said before, but if we can dig into some, details or
Yeah.
stories, that'd be great.
Yeah. So the frequency, maybe with a little bit of satire, I would say every day.
Yeah.
Field staff are making financial decisions. But I think some examples that might hit home. You're just right at the beginning of a project. It's a ground up project, and your excavator's going to town, and all of a sudden we just hit a layer of dirt that wasn't, I don't know, discovered in our geotech study, and all of a sudden we've got to do a lot more export than what we had anticipated. And you've got a time crunch, you got your schedule going, maybe you're up against weather deadlines, and the superintendent just, says, hey, you got to go, man. Just get it gone, and we'll bring in structural fill, and just keep going, And that example will apply to a lot of different trades too. But I think that's just kind of the first one that comes to the top of my mind is the scenario of we're up against weather deadlines. I don't have the time to, pontificate on whether or not like how to handle this. And
so what kind of buys and purchases will be made under that circumstance that help to use your system more efficiently through that process?
So I think that right now, specific to that, our specific product right now as it exists, we're focusing on a ProCore API to pull in change management. I think that part of the reason there is that ProCore is a pretty strong leader in the industry for project management, but our need is to create a bridge to make it as easy as possible to bring that change management information and marry it up as quickly and as clearly as possible with the contracts, the subcontracts, and then present all of that relevant information in front of a project manager when they're trying to do an invoice approval. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's what visually, that is our objective and like our current product roadmap.
So you want to do the lift that where ProCore, a tool like ProCore leaves off, you go ahead and you pick that up. So for all intents and purposes, we've named our session today, The Power of Virtual Corporate Credit Cards. Why don't we hone in a little bit on your solution and start to sort of pick off where you are now and where you are going as far as your roadmap is concerned. So as far as corporate credit cards are concerned, how is ControlQore handling that?
Brian, you want to take a turn? I'm tired of hearing my voice.
I can kind of discuss where corporate cards fit in, why we did that first. I like the diagram that we have up here really explains our mission and our vision. Between the two diagrams that we saw, the one with all of the mess that looks what a current financial technology management looks like in the construction space right now, it looks something like this that you have here. And, as ControlQore matures and as we continue to release more of our products, the solution will look like the next piece of the diagram here, where all financial management, including document management and project financials, will be housed in ControlQore. This was really, really a big lift. We couldn't do it all at once. We couldn't release it all at once, I guess was the best way to say it. And so we decided to release it in phases. And so we contemplated what was going to be the most unique solution that still solves a pain point, albeit a smaller one, but gets us a foot in the door and establishes us as truly understanding a construction company's needs. And a corporate card and expense management solution was what came to mind, what we decided would be the most effective. And so that corporate card and expense management solution really is built specifically for the construction space. There are other industry agnostic solutions that have tried to penetrate into the market, but are missing critical workflows around transaction management that are specific to the construction space.
So do you want to talk a little bit about those specifics, Bryant, then, so we really understand the difference between the agnostic and yours?
Yeah. So what's important to an agnostic solution is being as applicable to as many different business models as possible. And so when you start looking at our competitors, their models or their technology all follows a department-oriented workflow, which just means that transactions and cards all roll up under a specific department and follow a specific program based on that department. And ControlQore, we allowed our departments and our cards and transactions to remain independent of one another, so that a single card's transactions can be applied to multiple projects, or be applied to more than just one project. So if a superintendent is working 2 different jobs, he doesn't have to go online and manually switch which project he needs to go purchase for before he goes and buys something. Instead, he can just go make his purchase for multiple projects, have multiple transactions, code each one of those transactions to those separate projects. And then once that piece is taken care of, the workflow of that transaction follows the workflow of that project that has been preset. So the project manager will have the opportunity to review that transaction detail that was coded by the superintendent, take a look at the receipt, look at the job, at the cost code that was used, confirm that it is a cost code that is on his budget and is accurate to what was bought, and be able to apply it there and have it feed down into his managerial budget. So this is the difference in terms of like us versus agnostic solutions. And you'll continue to see as we release our next set of features. Again, it really boils down to making sure that our software is project oriented and follows project workflows in order for the most critical stakeholders of that project to see and know, what financial movement is happening in their space.
Well, I'm going to call out the fact that, what you're talking about is really a stricter alignment in workflow. Workflow, I do find, tends to be a term that is used more for the, construction technology vendor side. But we're trying to take these workflows and make sure that they are aligning with the work processes of the actual construction project.
Exactly.
Why this is, to me, what makes ControlQore a really interesting piece of software, partly because you're looking at JD, the head of product, but that's exactly what a great product manager is. They already understand the physical workflows of which that technology is being built for. And that has too often been the disconnect, at least in my experience, in technology.
I'll validate your that disconnect is, my experience being in a lot of very large companies and then one small one. I experienced a lot of agnostic solutions and came into PJF and building ControlQore with some preconceived notions that not quickly. It actually was painful, between JD and I fighting with each other.
Sure. But good fighting. Honestly, people have said to me, I mean, we talk about Gemba walks, we talk about all that thing, but until the process of the actual build is put first, and how you articulate that and then align it to code and communicate with software developers, no wonder.
So ultimately, and this is why, you know, I'm very happy and pleased that we have JD in the seat that he's in, and you've mentioned this, is that ultimately he and I will have disagreements often, and we have a relationship that really facilitates positive disagreement. But even if I have a strongly held opinion and his opinion is on the other side, I will defer to him. You know, I will say, okay, I would think that it would go this way, but because you are the industry expert, I will defer. And 9 times out of 10, JD's been proven right, which hasn't been good for his ego.
Brian, can you actually give us an example? Because I think this is really important for construction professionals that are watching or will watch our recording to really understand how you're trying to right the ship between technology and the actual work that's done on the site.
Sure. I think that an overarching principle that we are seeing be validated almost daily right now is initially I come in with a preconceived notion to automate.
Okay.
Do everything I possibly can to automate away the mundane functions. And while that statement is true, there is a more important aspect to running a business. Automation by nature can be inherently risky and dangerous because you begin to have a complacency or allow for complacency to enter your business because it's all automated away. Because JD and I fought about this issue very early on in ControlQore's start, the conversation was we can create automation where it makes sense, but we will always make sure there is an opportunity to review whatever has been automated away, and build that into the workflow so that you do not lose visibility and create unintentionally a leaky bucket of transaction detail going out the window somewhere, somehow through automations and integrations. So that's a big one that early on JD and I disagreed on until not even recently. It's been validated time and time again as we've been talking with other construction firms that, whenever we say something is automated, there's an immediate raised eyebrow. Like, really? Does it actually automate the thing away? And 2, I'm not really interested in a fully automated solution because it means I can't see what's going on my financials as well, or I have to create some kind of a process to make sure that automation is actually working the way it's supposed to.
But that's a ding ding moment. So I think, after today's live stream, and, we welcome people to want to have a full demo with the platform as it is. And we're going to get a little bit into the insights of what they're going to do in the future on their roadmap. But I think this is an opportunity to really peel back the realities of those situations, because what you're really talking about, Bryant and JD, is a philosophy. It's your philosophy to understand that it's construction first. Software is, I always say, is a tool. It's not unlike any other tool or machinery, end of story, that you're working with on a site. And until it serves the project, to your point, you who's to say you can automate anything? And also, I think in all software, even generically speaking, there's too much of an assumption that because the automation works, that the user contextually understands what happened and who did it happen to and what did it affect. And I think that's a really clear call out. that also it helps to make construction professionals more confident in your software, because you understand it's a people business to begin with. It always has been. And certainly, the average building isn't falling over because somehow a group of people, for good, bad, and ugly, make it happen. So we have to be there to aid the situation. So I kind of want to get into, how does ControlQore empower controllers and accounting departments to work with the project managers? And if you can talk about scenarios as opposed to, sort of high level, all the better, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, let me jump in. I want to make sure that I'm going to clear the record. Like I'm sitting here thinking I might sound like a tyrant or something like
No,
that.
that's true. That's good. Sorry, I don't mean to paint JD that way.
We're just having fun, so I'm just joking back a little bit. But like I would say that I'm going to get to that question, but like construction is beautifully messy, and it is a fascinating area to study. Every project's different. You can build the same building multiple times and have it be a completely different experience every time. And that's partially what I love about the industry. But I do want to just emphasize that it's just the product that we are selling is control. And it's hard to have control if you don't have full visibility into what is happening. And it's hard to fix what you can't see. And so I think that's the underlying philosophy to focus on. And as you're evaluating software, and it's a difficult decision to say, all right, I'm going to adopt this software. I'm going to make this work. It's a lot of work just to adopt a new tool and implement it in the first place. And I hope that by having this discussion, you can at least kind of pull back, like open the door or whatever you want to describe it as, and see at least what the intent is and what the philosophy is that's driving this design, that where possible, the true goal, the true power, like it's control and it's empowerment. And that's really it. And so that's actually, kind of just jumping in on that question, Stephanie. So you want to repeat it again? I want to make
sure. Yeah. How does ControlQore actually empower the controller and the accounting departments to work with the project managers? Because to me, that's where the rubber meets the road. It's always back office and site. It's like, well, how does your platform help that?
So I think, and I'll just establish at least my opinion, our opinion on what the role of the project manager is. So I've always described the project manager as the financial manager of a project. To also maybe elaborate a little bit, I look at the dynamic of the superintendent and the project manager. Those roles are just, two sides of the same coin, if you will. And I would say that the superintendent role, they get to focus on the on-site day in and day out management as well as the schedule. They are the captain, the leader and they really have a significant impact on the culture of their project. And the project manager, they manage the financial performance of their project. And so our responsibility as an accounting department is to empower our project managers with good information. They need good data, they need timely information, and we need to pay attention to the details in a way that we're not burning up their time with, 6 clicks per decision. And I say that like, if I have 100 invoices that I need to go through to make a good decision, and every time I look at an invoice for whether or not I should be approving this invoice, if I have to pull up a separate document management platform, or if I've got to pull up my managerial budget, or I have to have my commitment and then my accounting software so I can know how much I've applied or how much have I paid against this particular payment application. I mean, maybe my vendor includes it in a schedule of values and they have that detail. But if you're like me, you just learned that like you you have to question everything, whether there's not saying there's malice, but like records get mixed up, and so you need to have as much information available and in front of you as possible to be empowered to make a good decision, a good approval decision. And I think that's where we come in and focus in that, from our document management philosophy and tying together all of the relevant like documents. Like if I'm looking at a single invoice, there's hopefully, depending on the type of invoice and the project and whatnot, but I would say hopefully, or more often than not, there's going to be a subcontractor agreement tied to that invoice or a schedule of values. There's going to be a budget tied to that decision. There's going to be possibly a lien waiver tied to that decision. There's going to be, a percentage complete tied to that decision. So there's a lot of different variables that play into whether or not I should be approving this invoice. And, if you compound that decision by 50, like every little detail matters in empowering our teammates to make a good decision and to not have it take 10 minutes per decision or 5
Well,
minutes.
and the other thing about it is we're not always talking one project. As a matter of fact, we're not likely talking about one project. So what you're actually alluding to, JD, is having a holistic view in real time of what's going on with the money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to even further it down, and I want to emphasize, if you're, JD has talked about, multiply it by 50, and the amount of clicks it takes to make the decision or to see the important details of that invoice. Like, that is important, because if a project manager has 100 invoices that they have to get through, that's a significant time crunch for, even if you add 6 clicks. Well, if you're able to reduce that to 2 or 3, or maybe even 1, all of a sudden their ability to get through 100 invoices is 2-3 times faster. And their ability, like, they still have the same quality of data. They're just doing it in a faster, more efficient way. Just making sure that we emphasize that's really one of the most important things that we think about in ControlQore. How do we do this faster, without sacrificing the quality of the result?
Well, and I actually have an experience not too long ago where I was working with a trucking company, and the woman who headed up this trucking company used to take all the receipts home with her on the weekend and manually input them into a spreadsheet. So, we're really talking reality here when you start to talk about automating these processes. And to your very point, Brian, if I dare say, it has to be 3 clicks or less to get you to where you're going. Because at the end of the day, these companies have buildings to build and streets to maintain, or whatever their particular construction model is. And this is a tool.
Yeah. I think that, regarding your receipts question, what is available right now with corporate cards and expense management, receipts are a big deal. And so we have a mobile application. It's meant to be used by guys in the field. And like that, the receipt capture is one of the big buttons on the first thing that you see when you open that mobile app, to facilitate the idea that, as soon as I make a purchase, I get that notification from ControlQore. I need to go and take a picture of that receipt. I don't even need to worry about coding it. I'm not going to do anything with it right now, but at least I've captured that receipt, and I've done it we've made it as quick and as painless as possible, without overhauling the entire American infrastructure and creating auto-generated receipts. But that's
so that's a perspective of the field. Now, how does this work with how does the accounting then pick up this information, and what's the next step in?
So one of my thoughts on that is it kind of ties to the dashboard and bringing like extreme clarity to the status of every single transaction. And as we introduce more modules, more document types, this is only going to kind of build. So like if you look and you can see, okay, well, how many open transactions, that can be on a per user basis or across the entire platform. So as an administrator, usually that number is telling me like an entire platform across the board, how many open transactions, how many approvals do we have pending from, like reimbursement requests, fund requests. So as a controller, my responsibility is to, maybe my responsibility isn't to actually be doing I don't have the functional responsibility. I don't have to actually do all those approvals, but I need to ensure that the approval gets taken care of. So I have the ability to follow up with my teammates for, whatever. And we all have 100 things going on. And I know I appreciate as a manager when my teammate takes the time to just kind of give me a nudge and remind me, hey, I need you to get your approvals done. I need you to code your transactions, get it going. And, thought process, you're right. Like I need to do my part, but the hardest part of doing that is if I didn't have that visibility, step one is I've got to go take, I don't know, like depending on the platform, let's just call it a significant amount of time just to create that visibility. So if we can at least take care of that for you and just let you know, here's where everything's at. And eventually when we take care of bill approvals, you can know how many open bills there are, how many non-coded bills, how many bills that still need to be paid. And that really just strikes on a value that we've talked about it before, but if you're going to have control, you have to have visibility into every transaction and every status or stage of that transaction. If you're going to feel like you can keep things moving, we can't lose time by trying to create visibility. We got to let the tool do that for us.
And so the short answer is, of course, this is the dashboard or some configuration of it. I mean, as construction professionals can probably appreciate, construction technology developers are constantly changing and building out their platforms. But right now, this is today's dashboard. And you can see very simply the quick links on there where you're requesting reimbursement, or you're uploading that receipt, or you're requesting, those are the credit cards, correct? And you do them both digitally and physical. Is that correct?
Yeah, we offer physical cards that you can have out in your employees' hands, but we also do virtual cards that really are ideal for online purchasing. Virtual cards create a really safe environment to transact online without overexposing your company to some of the financial risks that are associated with online transactions. A virtual card can be assigned to a single vendor and be perpetually in use by that single vendor. It can have a limit on it, so the vendor can never overbill you without you knowing, because it'll cross a limit threshold. So it's just a really safe and secure way for you to transact online, and as well as maintain visibility over all of your subscription payments. As technology increases and as it becomes more adopted throughout the construction space, you have more and more subscriptions to all kinds of different things. And so this is another way for you to help keep track of not only your subscription, but how much you're spending on those subscriptions.
For sure. I mean, there's actually apps that you can download, from any one of the Android or the Apple Store for the average guy to do that. So, I mean, it gets more unique as you apply it to construction. Mm-hmm. So as we sort of wrap around, today's first session with ControlQore, what are the future features on the roadmap, and how are they going to benefit users, and why have you made them your priorities?
JD, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, like right now we are working diligently on our next release, which is going to be a bill approval workflow, as well as a lien waiver management tool. It really just builds on the same principles that you'll see when it comes to the card management piece. Robust document management, and we try to make sure that as these documents come in and they're introduced to the platform, that they are tagged. So we're not building off of like a traditional file management philosophy, but more so, hey, we've got a document, let's tag it, project name, vendor, all the relevant information that you need. So it sets you up in the future to quickly search for and retrieve all of the relevant documents that might be tagged with a vendor. You can search by a vendor, you can search by a project. But I think the thing that's really got me the most excited is actually I just call it consolidated approvals. So instead of me needing to go to a siloed card management platform to do my approvals, and then I go to a separate siloed invoice or bill approval process or platform, we're now bringing those two approvals together. So now it's just, as a project manager, I think about the finances on a project basis. My approvals are done on a project basis, and so that's the next release. And just to build off of that, we've got the lien waiver approval workflow, which I think is really exciting because it's built off of some unique logic that allows users to introduce the lien waiver approval and procurement, task process a lot earlier in the process. So as a project manager, let's just say a project manager is responsible for the bill approval. And let's just say, I don't know, at least in our organization and some other ones, I think generally speaking, there might be another individual who takes on the challenge of requesting and retrieving lien waivers that correspond to that bill. Well, as a bill gets introduced to the system or submitted by a vendor, we can either auto create a lien waiver and send that out, or we can retrieve their lien waiver and then and send that lien waiver through an approval workflow, and it allows those workflows to operate and live parallel to one another. So there's not a bottleneck. They both can kind of ebb and flow and progress independently, because usually you might have two different folks working on each of those different approvals. And so that's the next release that we have coming, and I don't know, it's got me really excited. I'm so excited to use those particular tools.
That's
well,
what
those are, sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Well, that's what's important to me is when we create and build these things, we automatically have at least one person who's excited to use our application. Like we're never going to be building something that doesn't have relevance to at least one general contractor in little town Utah. And so like that always is like an encouraging thought to me, is like we're not building something without having some form of context. Now, obviously, we constantly are challenging our ideas and pushing them up against the total, what the market really wants, and making sure that what we think would be a good idea and we want to implement for ourselves is actually something that's worth everybody else jumping on and trying as well. So we are constantly validating against the entire market, but we know for sure that at least one person who is at least one construction firm is excited about this particular product when it comes out.
So as far as general contractors are concerned, is that the area you're going to play in primarily, or are you ever going to flip where you're actually servicing, I'll say, for mechanical lien waivers on the sub side of things, or are you going to play in this?
That's a great question. We are we're constantly thinking about this platform from both perspectives, because we need, our end goal is to have everyone on the platform. We are genuinely trying to create a true payments ecosystem that can put people on the same page. So, for example, if I am a subcontractor and my customer list is a combination of, let's just say, a dozen different general contractors, um, as I submit my invoices, this is the future product roadmap, um, but it basically gives me real time updates as to the status of my bill, like whose desk is it on, um, who do I need to follow up with, has payment been issued, just trying to eliminate just the simple communication kind of friction points between the accounts receivable department of a subcontractor and an accounts payable department of the general contractor. So it really is being built in a way that intends to be the operating platform for whether you are the general contractor or the subcontractor. So does
Well,
that?
everybody's got skin in the game, and I think too often, and this is also why digital adoption by construction has been such a struggle, because it always seems to be in favor of the GC
Right.
only, right? And until you start to bring along and count in everybody who's got skin in the game, there's no building that ever went out with any kind of uh, gathering of subcontractors in some way, shape, or form. It would be an absolute rarity to ever have any general contractor that is fully and forever self-performing, which is a good segue actually in terms of your ideal profile. How many projects on average do you think an entity should be running to get really good use initially out of a product like ControlQore?
That's a really good question. I don't know that I've ever thought about it from a product count. If I had to venture a guess, I could be totally off, but I mean, at least five or so. Like, I mean, you could start. We have people that are starting on just brand new, starting out, and it's built in a way that intends to support companies even at that point. I think that the jumping point, if you are in a situation where you've worked really hard to create your own processes, let's say you've got like a cloud-based file management system, and you have few enough employees that you can look over your shoulder and yell at them, or they're just a simple phone call away, and there's only a few of you. You can probably manage a high degree of control for a given time. I think that this product's really geared towards either start off clean and start off with the platform, because you need to start with something. Might as well be on the one that you can grow with, or you've gotten to the point now. It's like, is the pain significant enough for me to put in the time to migrate to a different platform? Do I feel the stress of loss of control? Am I to the point in my growth where I'm having to delegate certain tasks, and now with that delegation, I feel like I'm giving up some degree of control or visibility or awareness or whatever it is. And I think that's really what ControlQore is aiming to do, is to empower managers and owners with an avenue to safely delegate certain tasks, but still maintain some amount of visibility and awareness and control. So I think the trigger is, am I stressed out of my mind, and am I losing control, or do I want to prevent that? So I don't know if that answers the question, but
It definitely answers the question. Not only does it answer the question, but you've answered it from a construction professional's perspective. And that's what should make a difference. I mean, you do make the point that if you are just starting out, start with a clean slate. And why wouldn't you? And then as you build on and grow your own platform, it grows with that individual who just, for the time being, is probably having no more than 2 projects running at a time. Mm-hmm. However, it's the stress. It really, again, this gets back to that old thing I keep saying about tool. It's a tool. It's a distressor. It's like the same reason that a building doesn't go up only with a single hammer, for the same reason. Really, it is. I mean, it's different applications, yes, but at the end of the day, there is it's eliminating people's aggravation,
Yeah.
and that's the truth.
100%. Yeah.
So, do you have anything to add, Callum?
No, I really like the perspective from the tool side. If you went out and purchased a saw and it only worked 50% of the time, or did 50% of accomplished 50% of what you need to do every time you went to cut something, that you would actively deem that as an ineffective tool. And I think that's a problem in software, that a lot of companies put something in front of field staff or back office professionals who, it only accomplished 50% of what they need to do. And so now they need to figure out what they're going to do with the remaining 50%, and they duct tape that together through other softwares and Excel spreadsheets and phone calls and emails and stuff like that. Whereas, with actual tools, that's not the case. And so, thanks to JD and Bryant's perspective. And then, as Bryant mentioned, we are actively every single day directly tied into real world project challenges and pain points that are experiencing through JD's firm. And so we look to apply those actively in each new product rollout, but then as we continue to build and produce a product built for construction.
And I just we didn't give any shout out to your contracting company, and you are CEO of it, obviously. So, if you want to mention what it is and a little bit maybe how it got started. It looked to me, I was on your website, and your parents are, yes.
Yeah, that's another stressful task. Luckily I've got a teammate now helping me out with the website update, but yeah, I mean, this is my, that is my, I guess we'll call tuition, my schooling. That's where the true education happened. We're a commercial general contractor. Our building types consist of automobile dealerships, medical buildings, assisted living facilities, and it's a relationship focused organization. We've intentionally managed growth in a way that allows us to really focus on quality. So I think that for us, it's been a quality first approach, and if growth happened along the way, it was really just because we were really focused on taking care of our clients. And I think that philosophy is just kind of bled into the approach that we take with this software.
As it should, as it has to,
yeah.
If I dare say, yeah.
I'm worn out on poor quality solutions, and it's just a lot of work to patch stuff together. Maybe people are better at it than I am, but ultimately the decision just came down to, if I'm going to empower my teammates and if I'm going to be able to jump in and be able to make a difference in all areas of an organization, I need to know how to safely delegate certain responsibilities, and I need to empower my managers with good information so that I'm not constantly having to jump in and patch together financial data and cross-check or confirm or approve a lot of transactions. It's just every one of those little bottlenecks, I become a problem at that point because I'm slowing down others. And I don't know, it's just trying to solve those issues has been a kind of a 10-year pursuit now, and it's been a great learning experience, but honestly, just it's what has me excited about building this product, and really grateful for our development team. We have a really close connection with our development team. One of our partners is our chief technology officer. He's based out of India and become a great friend. And we have a really exciting roadmap and a great relationship, and we're all extremely motivated to make a difference.
Well, I think, and on that, I think, we're going to call it today. I want to thank you, JD, Bryant, and Caleb, for taking the time to really share with the audience what you're all about. And I think even more importantly than the platform and what it can do, why you want it to do what it does and what you're planning on that roadmap. And I just want to give a shout out to Caleb, that if somebody would like to get a demo, a personalized demo of ControlQore, please reach out to Caleb at csmith@controlcore.com. Really easy to remember. We hope that you've enjoyed today's session with us here at Intelligent Construction Opportunities. And if anybody out there who is listening or will listen to this recording would like to have some kind of a similar experience to show off their software, we are open to be contacted, and you can contact us at info@intelops.com. And with that, again, I can't thank you guys enough. It really heartens me to see developers and a team get together and really understand why the tech. And to me, you've clearly made your case today. So again, I want to thank you very much for the time and for the effort to come on and do this.
And we, thank you, Stephanie, for doing what you do. We know that, the merger between technology and construction is an ongoing ordeal. And so having somebody that sits in between and makes that process easier and more comfortable for both parties, I think is an essential role. So thanks a lot for doing what you do.
Thank you so much. I think we will be good partners down the road. And with that, we'll call it a wrap. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and whoever is going to be listening to the recording. And again, reach out to either one of us if you have any further questions. There will be collateral forthcoming.